You feel lost. Not confused, not uncertain, but existentially dislocated. It's as if the life you've been living brick by brick, through plans and expectations and socially approved milestones, has quietly detached from you, like a skin you forgot to shed. You followed the script, didn't you? You got the degree, the job, the relationship, the sense of stability that everyone said would anchor you to meaning. And yet, here you are, waking up at 3 in the morning, staring at the ceiling as a single merciless question loops through your mind. Why does this not feel like my life? You can feel the hum of dissonance under the surface of your achievements, the way success itself has the flavor of ashes. You're burned out, but not just tired. There's a kind of spiritual exhaustion, as though you've been acting out someone else's dream. Our culture has a name for this: crisis. It says you've taken a wrong turn. You're told to get back on track, recalibrate, fix yourself. The world of self-improvement rushes in like a comforting army books, courses, productivity systems, meditation apps, all whispering the same promise. You can feel whole again if you just optimize. But what if that's the very lie keeping you stuck? What if the feeling of being lost isn't a malfunction to be corrected, but an intelligence trying to break through the noise? Two voices, separated by 2,500 years, saw through this illusion long before we did. Heraclitus, the dark fire of Greek philosophy, declared that stability is the greatest illusion of all, that everything flows and the only order in the cosmos is the hidden tension of opposites. And James Hillman, the father of archetypal psychology, whispered that your sense of being lost is not a pathology. It's your daimon, your inner destiny, sabotaging the wrong life you've built. Heraclitus gave us the physics of the soul. Hillman gave us its psychology. The truth they reveal is not comfortable. You are not lost because you made a wrong choice. You are lost because your destiny has begun to rebel. The path you've been walking was never yours. And now the deeper intelligence inside you, your daimon, has declared war on the life that imprisons it. That suffocating desert you find yourself in, it's not punishment, it's initiation. If you can understand that, everything changes. Because the desert, the lostness, the uncertainty, the void is not the end of the story. It's the moment your soul begins to speak in its true language: silence, resistance, disorientation. To decode it, we have to strip away the counterfeit comforts that have kept you asleep. Stay with me. Because before we find your way through this desert, we need to expose the false maps that keep you wandering in circles. What is the standard cure offered by modern culture for your suffering? It's simple. Optimize yourself. Fix your mindset. Meditate more. Eat clean. Build better habits. Find your passion. As if your soul were an app that just needs an update. You're told that if you can just adjust your behavior, happiness will return, clarity will come, and the feeling of being lost will vanish like a bad dream. But when you look through the eyes of Heraclitus, this logic collapses. He warned that the universe is not static, it's a living river of fire. You cannot step into the same river twice, he wrote, not because the river changes, but because you do. Every time you try to fix your life into a shape, to anchor it into certainty, you are rebelling against the logos, the hidden order that moves through chaos itself. Trying to optimize yourself into perfection is like hammering a nail into the current of a river. You can't stabilize the moving water. You can only drown in your resistance to it. Hillman saw the same delusion, but inside the psyche. The self-help industry tells you to silence your anxiety, to conquer your depression, to crush your fears. Hillman would call that spiritual amputation. He once wrote that your symptoms are the soul's way of speaking. To numb them is to cut the wire of the alarm while your house burns to the ground. Your anxiety, your burnout, your restlessness, these are not errors. They are messages. They are your daimon screaming, "This life is a lie." That's why no amount of productivity hacks or mindfulness apps can rescue you. Because you are not supposed to be at peace within the wrong story. Your pain is not a malfunction of your psychology, it is the revolt of your destiny. When you feel like you're falling apart, you're not failing, you're molting. The shell that once protected you is now too small, too suffocating. If the ego's solutions are poison, what's the antidote? How do you escape this desert if all your maps were drawn by the wrong hands? To answer that, we have to go deeper to understand the mechanics of the desert itself, because your lostness is not chaos. It follows laws. The physics of your confusion are ancient. Heraclitus called it the Logos. Hillman called it the Daimon. Together, they describe the invisible machinery of your transformation. Let's begin there. The ancient Greek word logos meant more than reason. It was the pulse of reality itself, the tension of opposites that keeps the cosmos alive. Heraclitus believed the world is fire. It destroys and creates at once, consuming its own ashes to stay alive. Everything flows, he said Pontarai. There is no solid ground in existence, no fixed self, no permanent truth. To live is to be carried forward by a current that never stops changing you. And so when you feel lost, what you're really feeling is the truth of existence tearing through the illusion of control. You've mistaken your social map for reality, but the river never cared for your roads. It floods them over and over until you remember that you are not meant to walk on concrete, you are meant to move with the water. There's a hidden order within that chaos. Heraclitus called it the Logos, the law that governs the flow. The Logos is not comfort. It's rhythm. It's the law that says day and night coexist, that life feeds on death, that clarity only comes through confusion. The path up and the path down, he said, are one and the same. Which means what you call being lost is simply the universe's way of forcing you toward the next version of yourself. Every time your life collapses, every time your plans dissolve, every time your certainty turns to dust, you're being reintroduced to the Logos. The same force that dismantles your control is the one that reveals your direction. But only if you stop resisting the current. Only if you stop demanding that the river stay still. That's the first secret of the desert. There is order within your chaos. Your confusion is not random. It is a sacred architecture tearing down the structures that no longer serve you. You're not supposed to find the map. You're supposed to realize that you are the terrain. But there's a deeper layer, still the part where the universal river meets your personal soul. Because while the Logos governs the cosmos, there's a second law that governs you. James Hillman called it the law of the soul, and it begins with the acorn theory. Hillman believed you are not born as a blank slate to be written upon by circumstance. You arrive with a seed, a hidden image, a unique pattern encoded within you like the acorn that already contains the oak. Your life's task is not to invent yourself, but to remember and protect that image. This is your Daimon, the inner companion of your destiny. It is not a metaphorical angel. It's the gravitational pull of your true nature. And when you betray it by living someone else's dream, by obeying the world's expectations, it rebels. That rebellion is what you call feeling lost. The Daimon does not whisper softly, it sabotages. It breaks the life that does not belong to you. It lets your routines decay, your interests wither, your success taste like ashes. It brings you to a halt, not because it's cruel, but because it refuses to let you die half-lived. Hillman said the soul's pathology is also its intelligence. In other words, your depression, your burnout, your emptiness, they're not obstacles to overcome, they're oracles. They are the exact mechanism through which your Daimon drags you back to the path of truth. Think about that. The very feelings you've been taught to medicate, suppress, or rationalize are the sacred instruments of your transformation. They are your inner compass breaking the false magnetic field of conformity. You may believe your anxiety is punishment, but perhaps it's initiation. An initiation into the authenticity you've been postponing for years. When you feel the ground collapsing beneath you, it's not because life is cruel. It's because the soil that could no longer sustain your roots is being cleared for new growth. You are being rerouted into the pattern that was planted in you long before you could name it. And this is where Hillman's vision intersects with Heraclitus's fire. Because just as the Logos uses chaos to restore balance, your Daimon uses confusion to restore authenticity. The desert you're walking through, the sleepless nights, the numb mornings, the haunting sense that something vital has gone missing, is not a punishment. It is the crucible. It's where the Logos and the Daimon meet. The universal current of change meets the personal seed of destiny, and together they dissolve the identity you outgrew. You feel like you're dying because, in a sense, you are. The false self, the one built from expectation and fear, is disintegrating, and in its ashes, the acorn begins to crack open. You might think, but I can't see where I'm going. That's the point. The Logos doesn't hand you a map. It only illuminates the next step, the way a lantern lights a few feet of a dark road. The desert has no signposts because it is designed to teach you how to listen. The map is internal. The compass is your emotional truth. Every wave of anxiety, every whisper of longing, every fatigue that says I can't do this anymore, is the Daimon recalibrating your direction. Most people flee this process. They cling to structure, rush to fix their confusion, return to the safety of routine. They mistake the desert for failure. But if you stay, if you allow the disorientation to burn away your certainty, something extraordinary happens. You begin to hear. Beneath the noise of panic, a subtle voice emerges. It doesn't give you answers. It asks questions. What is dying in me? What have I been pretending to love? What wants to be born? The desert is not a place to escape from. It's a sacred passage. Every ancient tradition understood this. The wilderness is where prophets hear their call, where heroes lose their names, where souls remember what they were made for. You do not survive the desert by conquering it. You survive by surrendering to its rhythm. If you're still with me, stay a little longer, because understanding that your pain has meaning is only the beginning. The real work is learning how to walk with it, how to cooperate with the Logos, and listen to the Daimon without losing your mind to fear. This is where the philosophy becomes psychological practice, where the metaphysical river meets the dirt of everyday life. So how do you walk through a place that has no map? How do you follow a voice that speaks in symptoms? The answer isn't in a checklist or a course or a guru's book. The answer is hidden in the silence you keep avoiding. The path forward is not forward at all, it's inward. And the first step is to stop trying to silence the pain. Stop labeling your anxiety as an enemy, your sadness as weakness. They are messengers, not malfunctions. When you feel the familiar wave of tension, don't reach for distraction. Ask it quietly. What are you trying to tell me? What in my life do you refuse to carry any longer? You might be surprised by what answers. Maybe it's the job that drains you. Maybe it's the persona you perform every day. Maybe it's the relationship where you've been shrinking to fit. Every symptom is a refusal of the soul to keep living in a structure that no longer matches its truth. To walk with the Daimon, you must begin to honor these refusals. This is what Hillman meant when he said that pathology is the soul's way of healing itself. It's not your job to medicate the symptom away. It's your job to interpret it. The anxiety that feels unbearable today could be the same energy that pushes you to finally create, to speak, to leave, to change. Heraclitus would say this is how the Logos moves through you. The same tension that breaks you is the one that brings you to life. Opposites aren't enemies. They are instruments of transformation. Your despair is the doorway to meaning. Your lostness is the compass to your calling. If this is resonating, stay with me, because once you stop trying to fix yourself and start listening to what your soul is actually asking for, a quiet revolution begins. The desert, which once felt like exile, becomes a teacher. You begin to see that the very emptiness you feared is the womb of your becoming. As you begin to listen rather than fix, something shifts in the texture of your awareness. The noise of panic softens into rhythm, and within that rhythm, you begin to notice patterns, subtle, almost invisible, guiding you toward what feels alive again. The desert starts to reveal its secret architecture. Every silence becomes a conversation, every emptiness a doorway. You start to realize that being lost was never a mistake, it was a strategy. The Daimon doesn't guide you by handing you certainty. It guides you by stripping away everything that is not you. It teaches you through absence. This is the second practice, to live by the Logos, to let go of the fixed map. The ego always wants the full plan, the coordinates, the outcome, the guarantee that this path will work. But the Logos laughs at the need for control. It offers only presence, only the next step. To live according to the Logos is to move through your life as if you were blindfolded, guided by the pulse of something deeper than thought. It's terrifying at first, because your mind cannot comprehend a life led by intuition. But once you surrender, a strange calm takes over, the calm of someone who no longer needs to know. When you stop demanding certainty, something remarkable happens. Life begins to speak to you again. Not in grand revelations, but in whispers, coincidences, subtle attractions. The way certain memories glow when you think of them. The Logos works through these moments, rearranging your reality to align with your true trajectory. Every time you say yes to something that feels authentically alive, no matter how small, you take another step through the desert. And every time you choose safety over truth, the sand shifts and you sink deeper into stagnation. So let go of the fantasy of 5-year plans and purpose statements. You don't need a map of your entire future. You need only enough courage to take the next step that feels honest. The Daimon never reveals the destination because the destination is not a place, it's a state of being. And this leads to the third practice, following the image. Hillman said that if you want to understand your soul's pattern, you have to look backward, not at your traumas, but at your fascinations. What captured you as a child before the world taught you what was practical? What obsessions refused to let you go? The acorn hides its image there. The Daimon often leaves clues in the things that made no sense at the time. The strange hobbies, the irrational dreams, the symbols that haunted your imagination. Maybe it was drawing faces, building worlds, taking things apart just to see how they worked. Maybe it was silence, the kind of silence that made you feel vast. These are not random, they're fingerprints of your soul's original code. To follow them is not regression, it's resurrection. The child you once were is not gone, it's buried. And the desert, with its endless stillness, is the perfect place to start digging. Now something begins to happen as you integrate these practices. You start to see that the desert, which once seemed cruel and meaningless, is in fact a crucible, a sacred alchemy designed to strip away the ego and reveal the essence. Heraclitus and Hillman converge here. One says fire purifies, the other says pathology initiates. Together, they whisper the same truth: suffering refines the soul. Every tear, every failure, every collapse was never punishment. It was participation in the oldest ritual of transformation, death and rebirth. The Logos dismantles, the Daimon reconfigures. The chaos of the outer world and the chaos of your inner world are not two separate storms. They are the same storm seen from different angles. And once you recognize that, fear begins to dissolve. You realize that to be lost is not to be abandoned. It's to be summoned. The universe, through your suffering, is asking for your attention. It's calling you to step out of imitation and into incarnation, to stop living as a reflection and start living as a flame. And as you start to walk differently, the landscape shifts. The desert that once echoed with the wind of loneliness now begins to hum with presence. You stop searching for the exit and start noticing the patterns in the sand, the way the stars arrange themselves above you, the faint glow on the horizon that was always there. The more you surrender to not knowing, the more life starts to move with you instead of against you. This is the hidden promise of the Logos. What dissolves you is also what delivers you. The path up and the path down are one. You lose yourself only to find the self that was never lost. And in that moment, the desert stops being a prison and becomes a teacher. You begin to understand what Hillman meant when he said that your calling is not something you find, it's something that finds you. If you can feel this awakening, If the pieces are beginning to align in a way that words can't quite describe, then you're already crossing the threshold. The desert is behind you, even if you're still surrounded by sand. The air feels different now. You've stopped resisting the wind. You're beginning to walk with it. But there's one final transformation ahead. The moment where this understanding turns into embodiment, where you stop learning about the Logos and start living it. Because once you realize the desert was never punishment, only purification, you face the ultimate question. What happens when you stop searching for purpose and start living as purpose itself? When you finally stop searching and begin living, a quiet revolution unfolds. The energy that once fueled your anxiety transforms into movement, not frantic or goal-driven, but natural, like a current carrying you forward without effort. The need to figure life out dissolves, and in its place, a deeper intelligence takes root. You no longer chase meaning as something external. You begin to radiate it from within. The fire of Heraclitus now burns in your chest, and the whisper of Hillman's Daimon becomes a steady pulse guiding your every decision. You start noticing how the small moments, an honest conversation, a decision made from instinct rather than fear, a single breath taken fully, become thresholds. You're no longer managing life. You're participating in it. You've stopped fighting the Logos and started dancing with it. This dance is not about control, but communion. You move, life responds. Life moves, you respond. There's no separation. The current that once terrified you now feels like home. And then, something miraculous happens. The feeling of being lost disappears. Not because you've discovered a fixed path, but because you've realized there never was one. The world doesn't need your certainty, it needs your presence. You understand that the desert never intended to destroy you. It was sculpting you. Every grain of sand that burned your skin was reshaping your boundaries, polishing your rough edges, preparing you to reflect light. This is the promise hidden inside the pain. When you trade the social map for the soul's code, the landscape changes. The external world may look the same, but the internal geometry has shifted. The same job, the same relationship, the same morning routine, all of it becomes different because you are different. You are no longer moving from fear of being lost. You are moving from the joy of being alive. The Logos still flows, the chaos still burns, but now you recognize it as the heartbeat of existence. You stop resisting the storm because you see that you are made of the same elements. Hillman said you do not have a purpose, you are one. That truth settles into your bones like a calm after thunder. The desperate search for identity ends. You begin to live as an unfolding process rather than a final product. You don't need to perform meaning anymore, you embody it. And the Daimon, that quiet companion who once had to scream through anxiety and collapse, finally relaxes. Its work is not over, but its war is. You understand now that all those nights of emptiness were not evidence of failure, they were labor pains. The you that was lost was the persona, the shell, the mask. The you that has emerged is not a role. It's an organism tuned to its own frequency. When you walk now, you walk differently, not with the stiffness of someone trying to get it right, but with the gravity of someone who knows they belong. The desert, that once endless expanse of uncertainty, has become fertile. Ideas begin to bloom again. The silence, once suffocating, becomes music. The stillness that frightened you becomes clarity. You have learned that freedom is not the absence of limitation, but the intimacy with your own rhythm. You have learned that the river does not punish, it purifies. And so you realize that being lost was never the enemy. It was the teacher. It was the necessary dismantling that allowed you to discover the one truth that cannot be taught, that you are not walking toward your destiny, you are your destiny unfolding. When you embrace this, life stops feeling like a test. It becomes a collaboration. You start co-authoring reality with the same mystery that once terrified you. Every challenge becomes an invitation. Every loss becomes translation. You no longer seek approval from the outer world. because your authority has moved inward. The voice of the Daimon is clear now, and its language is unmistakable. Truth, integrity, aliveness. If you are standing in your own desert right now, remember this. It is not a void. It is the echo chamber of your awakening. The silence you fear holds the coordinates of your transformation. Listen closely, and you'll hear the first whisper of your next chapter forming inside you. It won't shout. It will arrive softly like a breeze through dry sand, saying only, "Keep walking." I'm here because you are no longer searching for the right path. You are the path. The fire of Heraclitus burns in your veins. The seed of Hillman's acorn grows through your spine. And the current of the Logos carries you forward into the only direction that has ever mattered deeper into yourself. And when someone asks you, "How did you find your way?" you will smile, not with pride, but with recognition, and answer, "I didn't. I learned to stop running from where I was." The desert wasn't exile. It was initiation. The feeling of being lost was not the sign of your failure. It was the proof that your soul refused to live small. You didn't find the light, you became it. And now, the world doesn't need your certainty, it needs your flame. So if you are lost, if everything you once knew is dissolving good, that means the Logos is alive in you. That means your Daimon is awake. Let the map burn. Walk into the dark with open eyes, because what waits for you on the other side of that silence is not safety, it's freedom. And freedom, real freedom, is the only path that was ever yours.